Thank you for joining me today to learn more about Office 365 and how it can help with your data protection and GDPR requirements. I'm Andrew Haller, the Managing Director and CTO of AMDH Services Limited. We're a small ICT consultancy specialising in ICT strategy, cloud services, Office 365, ICT security and ICT infrastructure. Today I'm going to spend some time talking about how Office 365 can help you with your data protection requirements and also how it can help you with the GDPR or General Data Protection Regulations from the EU. You might have noticed and wondered why is it that GDPR is mentioned quite a lot but the Data Protection Act isn't really anymore. Well, the UK implemented the EU General Data Protection Regulations as the Data Protection Act of 2018, so the two things are really pretty much the same. Further clarification in regards the GDPR was provided in the Brexit or the European Union Withdrawal Act of 2018 as well, making it clear that even once the UK has left the EU, the GDPR regulations will continue to apply to us. This means that after the UK exits, we'll remain aligned to the GDPR and it's still going to be relevant. If you're a small organisation, there are a number of questions that you need to ask yourselves, and in fact these questions are valid even if you're a large organisation. These aren't of my own making, these are from the ICO, the UK Information Commissioner. Firstly, do you know what personal data is? You can't really comply with the GDPR if at an organisation you don't understand what personal data is. Do you have a record of what personal data you hold, and do you know why you hold that personal data? Do the people about whom you hold personal data, do they know that you hold their data and how you use it? So do they know why you've got it? How do they know that? There must be a means, a mechanism by which you've intentionally gone about telling them that. Do you only collect the personal data that you actually need, or do you collect more than just that? Really, under the GDPR, you're only allowed to collect data that you actually need. Do you keep personal data for only as long as it's needed for, and do you specify somewhere what the retention policy around that is? Do you keep personal records accurate and up to date? Do you keep personal data secure? Do you know what rights people have in regards to their personal information? Do you have a way that people can get in touch with you in order to exercise their rights regards to the personal data you hold about them? Do you have a way in which your staff are trained and means by which they've learnt about what their responsibilities to the citizens about whom you hold personal data are? Are you aware that if you process personal data and you're the controller, that you need to pay a fee to the Information Commissioner for that, called a data protection fee? Under the GDPR, citizens have a number of rights, there's 8 of them. The right to be informed, so the right for somebody about whom you hold their data to be told that you hold their data. The right of access, so people have a right to request access to the data you hold about them. The right to rectification, so the ability for people to say, there's this information you hold about me and it's wrong, please can you fix it? The right to erasure, not the banned, the right to actually ask for your information to be deleted. The right to restrict processing. So let's suppose you've got a particular app that you're planning to use with some information. Somebody has to have the right to be able to go, I'm happy for you to hold my data, but not if you're using this app with it, or not if you're using it in that way. The right to data portability, is a limited right here rather than a unlimited right, but there is some situations in which people can request to be able to gain access and take their data away with them. The right to object to processing, so people can ask for you not to process their data in certain ways, but they can also object to you processing it completely. And there are also some rights relating to automated decision making and profiling. So things like evaluating staff as to whether you'll look at their CVs and consider them for a job in an automated fashion without ever a human looking at it. There's rights around that as well. The GDPR has, in order for you to enact it properly, has a fairly lengthy list of documents that you'd need. Some of these you could perhaps combine down, but the full list is basically a data protection policy that covers the personal data you hold, a privacy notice that states publicly how you comply with the GDPR, an employee privacy notice that states how you process data relating to your employees, a data retention policy that states how long you hold different data for. It needs to be clear that you only hold data for as long as it's needed in that document. A data retention schedule, that's basically a list of the different records you hold and how long you hold them for and how you will dispose them when they're no longer required. You potentially could combine those two, the data retention policy and the schedule. And a formal means of gaining consent for all the data you hold, and a record of how you've obtained consent for all the data you hold. This might be that you ask people when you collect their data, but if you do, you need to somehow record that after the event. Data processing or data sharing agreements, a formal agreement with any third parties that process data on your behalf. A data protection impact assessment, or a DPIA. A DPIA, it's a formal record of some specific processing. It could relate to an application, or it could be a project you're running, and it evaluates the basis upon which the data is held or processed, who's processing the data, why it's being processed, and how the processing complies with the law, and what risks exist with the processing and how those risks are mitigated. You'll end up with a fair number of DPIAs, and they have to all be held in a DPIA register, which is just a log of all those documents, I suppose. You also need to hold a data breach response and notification procedure that specifies if you have a data breach, how you'll handle that, what actions you'll take, and then there's an obligation for you to inform the Information Commissioner as well, and you have to have a procedure for which you follow to do that. And finally, whenever you do have a data breach, you need to record that in a register in addition to providing a response to it and notifying the ICO, and that's called the Data Breach Register. So I can hear you asking, I understand about the GDPR and the Data Protection Act, but what's Office 365 got to do with all this? Well, you have the law, the Data Protection Act of 2018 and the GDPR. Then in order to comply with that, you build policies and procedures within your organisation to help you to apply that. But you need tools that make it easier. If you just stick with the policies and processes, then when it comes to an event taking place, for example, if someone raises a request for you to tell them what information you hold, you could have the data in a whole range of different locations. And there's a need for you to actually be able to collate that data. And if you're using, say, a CRM system to store some stuff, a Dropbox for some stuff, perhaps you're using some is stored in email, perhaps some other data stored elsewhere, then you've got no common means with which to actually provide the answer to the questions that you're asked. Technologies that assist in complying are things like Office 365, where the data is all held in one common location, and therefore when you run searches against that common location, you get complete results. This is how Office 365 can help, by providing that tooling to enable you to comply. So 5 reasons to use Office 365. Now, I'm not here talking about the Data Protection Act, I'm talking about Office 365 in general, because if you're going to use the tooling that helps it comply with GDPR and the Data Protection Act, you need to have a legitimate reason to use it in the first place. And I've got 5 reasons. First of all, security. It offers world-class security. Second, it's low cost, pay as you go. You pay for the number of users you have in the environment, and it is for the number of tools that are provided, it's not a high cost. Thirdly, it supports remote working. You can access your data securely from any device, from anywhere, at any time. And that's great news, because it means people can work from home, particularly at present. It supports collaborative team working. At the moment, if you've got a document, I imagine that in a lot of instances you might email the document around people who need to look at it. If they need to comment, they'll probably email back. But with Office 365, you can share a link to the document and people see it in situ. They can review it, they can edit it, they can comment on it all at the same time. And finally, fifthly, continuous development. Office 365 isn't a static product. It's not like they did it and you're going to install it now and it's the same product it was 5 years ago. It's a constantly evolving, constantly changing product. New features are being added every month. Now, this means you're buying into a product that will keep pace with your requirements. It's the gold standard for business productivity, and certainly for charities it's something that they're not really getting very much at the moment, and it would be a good choice as a product. There's a second general reason why you might want to use Office 365 too. I'm going to call this data splurge, but the idea that you take some data and it can be stored in a number of different places. I think I alluded to this earlier. It can be stored in Dropbox or a CRM or an employee record or email. Someone else might use Google Drive to store data. There might be several different versions of a single product. Your email might be managed by whoever, and online meetings might be happening in Zoom, in Skype, or in Teams possibly, for Microsoft's version, and also in person. There's no control and no audit capability for any of that, so you can't identify where data is because it could be everywhere, and no one knows what data is stored in total. This is totally non-compliant with the GDPR, and it's not really even capable of compliance because the data is not stored in a common place, and you can't concretely say you know exactly where it is. Office 365, on the other hand, if you take away that kind of data splurge or shadow IT and move to Office 365, you've got a common repository for all your data. It's indexable and auditable. You can apply controls to it extensively. You've got your email and your SharePoint or your document store and your shares and everything like that all in one place. Sharing is done in a managed and controlled way. You can apply security to it, and because of all those things, it's compliant with GDPR for you. So a little more on what Office 365 delivers for you. I split Office 365 into 4 key areas. There's the foundational products of Office 365, things like the email delivered through Outlook, SharePoint for project document stores and meeting document stores, the calendaring available, OneDrive for personal document sharing, PowerPoint, Word, Excel and OneNote. Then there's the transformational ones, the ones that allow you to drive change through an organisation. Things like Power BI that visualises your data, Power Apps that provides the ability for a non-technical, non-coding staff member to actually start developing applications, and Power Automate, the ability to do things on a schedule in an automated manner. Forms, that's similar to SurveyMonkey, the forms function in Office 365, and Stream, a video service, but a private one, a bit like YouTube, but only for your organisation. Then there's the relational tools like Yammer, which is a business social media platform, Sway, Teams, Planner and Delve, and then wrapping all of that around to make sure it's kept in control. There's the security and compliance elements, things like the secure score, the compliance score, threat management, the GDPR dashboard, cloud app security, data loss prevention, the ability to manage data subject requests. So all of that wraps around the foundational, transformational and relational elements. Most organisations start their journey by focusing on the foundational, but the real change drive through an organisation comes by looking at how the transformational and relational elements can actually help you with your day-to-day operations. So 6 ways in which Office 365 can help with data protection and GDPR. It's got 6 demos coming up that are going to cover each of these areas. The first one will be on use Compliance Score to improve how well you're complying with GDPR. Then use Secure Score to ensure your data has been appropriately protected. How to apply retention policies to the data held in Office 365. How to use content search and e-discovery to find personal data and to comply with data subject access requests. How to control where your data goes using data loss prevention. And monitoring Compliance Centre and Security Centre for data breaches or other risks. Firstly, use Compliance Score to guide you on your compliance path. To make it simpler for you to keep your Office 365 environment compliant with GDPR, Microsoft have created Compliance Centre and Compliance Score. Compliance Score is a gamification of a tick list. You score points for completing items on the list. In this demo, I'm going to show how to get from the Office 365 login page, and this is the first screen you see here when you've logged in, through to Compliance Centre and then to view the compliance score. So the first thing you do is click Admin. This will take you to the Admin Centre. Then Show All to see all the admin centres. You want Compliance. In Compliance Centre you've got an overview of everything, but you've also got Compliance Score. We're going to click on Compliance Score. So the Compliance Score shows that at the moment we're scoring 12,093 points out of a possible 16,101 points. Microsoft have delivered 1,293 points, whilst we've delivered 0, purely because this is a demo site, it's unconfigured, and we've got 280 actions to complete, and the actions are listed down here along with how many points they add to the score. So you'll notice that an action here doesn't correspond to 1 point here, it corresponds to a number of points. And then to complete actions you'd go into improvement actions and then click on it for further information on how to implement. Heading back to Compliance Score for a moment, you'll notice that at the moment, if we look at the assessments that are in action at the moment, it's purely the data protection baseline. If we wanted to add another baseline onto here, so for example, you'll see in a minute there are a number of different templates you can populate, including EU GDPR, Office 365. If we click that and go through the actions, create the assessment name, apply it, what to apply it to, and so on, it will add an additional assessment and the associated actions, helping you to understand how to become compliant according to Microsoft's view of compliance for that particular assessment that you put up. Secondly, a demo of Office 365 retention policies. There are essentially 3 ways to set a retention policy in Office 365. There's generic retention policies that are broad sweeping, so keep all data for X years. Then there's label-based retention. You define a retention label and you manually apply the retention labels. And then thirdly, there's again a second variant of label-based retention. You define the retention labels and they're applied automatically based on a policy you define. The simplest way to set up a Office 365 retention policy is to go in Compliance Centre into Policies, then in Policies into Retention, and then here you've got the options. This is about setting labels and then policies that apply to those labels, but we're going to just set up a generic policy. So we're going to set up new retention policy, generic retention policy. We want to retain all content for 7 years. Do you want to delete it after this time? Yes or no? We're going to say yes. Go to the next, select the locations where the policy applies. Review your settings. We've left this fairly straightforward, and then create the policy. A third demo is about how to find out what data you hold in Office 365 about someone. If you keep the majority of your data in Office 365, you'll be able to search Office 365 for all content you hold on a particular person. Under GDPR, people can request information that you hold about them. They can request that you modify that data or erase it, or they can ask that you provide it to them. Office 365 provides you a range of different ways of doing that. There's the content search function, data subject requests function, and then there's the e-discovery. The broadest of these is content search. That's what I'm going to show you now. You've got 2 options for a search, either a new search or a guided search, or a search by ID list. That's 3 actually. I'm going to show you the guided search function. Enter a friendly name, GDPR, subject access request, Andrew Horler, number 3, demo. Choose the locations in which you want to search, all locations for this. Select the keywords. We're going to search for sales, Andrew Horler. Put them on different lines though. So, Sales, Andrew Horler, marketing. I'm putting other words in other than just Andrew Horler because it won't find anything for me because it's a demo tenant with nothing there for me. I'm not going to play about with any conditions, I'm just going to finish the query. And then it's creating the search. And now it's searching. This could take some time. It depends on how big the environment is and what it's got to search. Now it's come up with an estimated 866 indexed results. At this point you can choose to view them or export them. I'm not going to do either of those in this instance. Our fourth video is about ensuring you control your data with data loss prevention. Under GDPR, it's important that you identify and control any data that contains people's personally identifiable information, or PII. Data loss prevention can help you to do this. In this demo, I'm going to show how to configure a data loss prevention policy. From Compliance Center, you go to Policies, then Data Loss Prevention. A data loss prevention policy takes a set of standard metric matches, so it might be a credit card number, a passport number, or some other metric like that, and it then says how to control it. So you'll see I've already got two on here: US financial data and General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, that I've deleted, and it's not yet deleted. So creating a new policy, I'd go into Privacy, and you'll notice that I've got General Data Protection Regulation here. I'm not going to use that one because I've already done it. But down here I've got UK Personally Identifiable Information, or UK Data Protection Act. Let's apply the UK Data Protection Act. Helps detect the presence of information subject to the United Kingdom Data Protection Act, including data like national insurance numbers. Protects national insurance number, UK and US passport numbers, and SWIFT codes, which I think is to do with banking. You then click Next. It offers you descriptions as to what you're doing, asks you where you want to apply the policy, asks you if you want the default settings or if you want to customize it. So for example, if you had that you wanted to add what a credit card number looked like, or bank sort code and account number, you could do that as well. And then you go Next. Information protect, detect when this content is shared with people outside my organization or with people inside my organization. What to do when content matches the policy conditions: show policy tips to the users and send them an email notification. Detect when a specific amount of sensitive information is shared at one time, so if there was 10 records for example, or more in this instance, and send incident reports in email to a global admin. And then you can actually restrict access or encrypt the content should you want to prevent people from sharing it. And you'd like to test it first to check that it does what you expect it to, or turn it on straight away, or leave it on off now. I'll create the policy but I'll turn it on later. Let's leave it on test, and then when you've done that, it summarizes the policy, and then you click submit and it will go ahead and create the policy. The fifth video is about how to ensure your environment is secure with Secure School. Under the Data Protection Act, there are a number of best practices to implement that cross the boundary between data protection and information security. Some of these are best viewed through Secure School, which provides a baseline security policy for Office 365. To get to Security Center and Secure School, go to Admin, and then select Security. Now Microsoft is in the middle of migrating from Security and Compliance Center to Security Center and Compliance Center. So at the moment we've got one more step to click, which is that one there. And then you'll see here it says Secure School. You've also got some stuff on threat protection, users that are a risk, the security intelligence feed, and some other elements as well. But we're going to look at Secure School. So you go into Secure Score, and at the moment my Secure Score is pretty low because this is a demo tenant. It's 30, and it says 21 out of 70 points have been achieved, and it breaks it down in categories so I can see how to improve the score. If I go to improvement actions, it'll list actions I can take to improve my security. Some of these are fairly straightforward, some of them are more complicated, but if I select one, then it takes me to a page in which I can configure it. Click Manage, and it will take me into Microsoft Azure and allow me to complete that action. Our sixth video is about monitoring Compliance Center and Security Center for data breaches or other risks. There's little point having tools that monitor and report on the posture of your environment if you never look at the results of those. So we believe it's important that you look at these, and it's important that you find a supplier who will look at these for you if you're looking for a totally managed service. To keep up to date with your security and compliance posture within Office 365, you're best going to the home page of the security or the compliance centers. So this one here is the home page for Microsoft 365 security, and as you can see, it shows a variety of information. The more features that are turned on, the more information that shows up here. So there's users at risk, devices with active malware, devices at risk, device compliance, and even threat analytics down here. On Compliance Center, it will demonstrate how compliant you are and what non-compliances you have. So for example, here it says I have 23 items with retention labels applied, and it will allow me to identify what's going on in the environment. So if your current supplier, if you're using Office 365 already, isn't regularly looking at these pages, then you ought to ask them to look at them and provide you some feedback or change which supplier you're using. If you're a UK registered charity, including churches, you can get discounted pricing for Office 365 or Microsoft 365 suite of products. Just an example of this, Microsoft 365 Business Premium is normally priced at £15.10 per user per month in the UK, but for non-profits this drops to the grand price of £0 or £3.56 depending on how many users you've got. And most other Microsoft user-based products subscription licenses are similar to that, so it's definitely worth looking at it and working with us to help you get on board that. The best way to get started with Office 365 is to work with a Microsoft Cloud Services partner to get Office 365 set up and to provide ongoing support once it's set up. We've got a range of special offers at the moment available for non-profits to help you get into Office 365. These include initial setup, basic support for 5 users, extended or expanded support for 5 users, and stuff around their compliance and security configuration, either to audit an existing environment if you've got one or to set one up for you. Thanks for listening.